We're going to take a couple minutes here to go through this 7.1 to 7.3 quiz review. The main idea is area, the definition of area. We have our different area formulas for several of our quadrilaterals and triangle. We'll use those areas, and then we finish with Pythagorean Theorem and determining if three lengths given will give us a right triangle, an obtuse triangle, or an acute triangle. So let's jump in it. I have some things filled out in here already, but make sure you know them. So number one says define area. The number of non-overlapping square units it takes to cover a region. I know that's a little bit different wording. It's the same meaning. You can memorize this definition. You can memorize the other wording of it, but there is the definition of area. It's the number of non-overlapping square units it takes to cover a region completely. Next, we have our different formulas. So square is s squared. Just remember, maybe I'll write this to the side, when we see these letters, s represents a side length. When you see that, B, you see B in some of these, that's the base. We know H is the height. Please remember that base and height are always perpendicular to each other. Here it talks about B sub 1 and B sub 2. The trapezoid has two bases, and then D stands for diagonal. And so you have your several formulas there that we learned in these sections. And so then we're going to answer these different questions. So find the area of each. A kite with a crossbar being 8 inches and the axis of symmetry 15 inches. If you want to sketch it, you can. So here's a kite. It says the crossbar, which is this length, is 8 inches. So I'm going to actually put it up here because we're going to cross over that. So that's 8 inches. And then the axis of symmetry, which I'm doing dotted here, that's 15 inches. Well, both of those things represent diagonals. And so we can look up to the area of a kite, which is actually just in number 8. And the area is 1/2 diagonal 1, which we can say is 8, times diagonal 2, which is 15. You can multiply this in any order. We'll just do 1/2 of 8 is 4, and then 4 times 15 is 60, so it is 60 inches squared. Number 10, that's just a rectangle. It's a quadrilateral with 4 right angles, so the area of that is base times height. So that's just 8 kilometers times 5.8 kilometers. We can multiply those. You can use a calculator for this quiz, but I don't have one with me right now. So the area is 41.6 kilometers squared. Number 11, that is a square. We know area of a squared is just the side squared. So this is 10 miles squared. And so that is 100 square miles. 10 times 10 is 100 miles squared. It's a large square. Next one, that is a trapezoid. So area of a trapezoid is 1/2 base 1 plus base 2 times the height. We remember that as the kind of the average of the bases times the height. We can plug those things in there. We'll do base 1 is 9.8 plus base 2 is 2.8 multiplied by the height of 9.5. And we're going to just work our way through this. 9.8 plus 2.8 is 12.6 times 9.5. Well, half of 12.6 is 6.3. times 9.5, and once again we can multiply to the side here. So the area is 59.85, and this was in meters, so meters squared. Next one is a triangle. We know the area of our triangle is 1/2 base times height. Base and height are perpendicular, so 1/2 the base is the 5 centimeters, and the height is the 4.3 centimeters. This time I'm going to multiply 5 times 4.3 first, and then multiply by the half. So 4.3 times 5, that is, so 1/2 times 21.5. So half of 21.5, that's 10.75 centimeters squared. 14 is another simple one. It's a rectangle. It looks like a square, but it's a rectangle because it's 4 and 4.2. Area of a rectangle is base times height. So 4 times 4.2 is 16.8, and that is kilometers squared. Number 15 is a square. We know that's the side length squared. So we do 2 feet squared. Well, it's 2 feet times 2 feet, which is 4 feet squared. So for those, you're just finding area. Make sure you know your area formulas. Plug the numbers in and do the computation, like do the multiplying. You can use a calculator to find those things. On to the next page. This time it says find the missing measurement, round your answers to the nearest tenth. So this time we are going to be given the area and we have to find one of the measurements that's missing. So in number 16 it says the diagonal of a rhombus. So we're supposed to find the diagonal of a rhombus if the area is 84 inches squared and one diagonal is 14 inches. Well, we know the area of a rhombus is 1/2 diagonal 1 times diagonal 2. So now what we do with these is we plug in the 84 square inches for the area equals 1/2. We know one of the diagonals is 14 inches, and we want to find the other one. So we have 84 inches squared. Half of 14 inches is 7 inches. And then we would divide both sides by 7 inches. Well, 84 inches squared divided by 7 inches is 12 inches, and that is the length of diagonal 2. In number 17, we have a parallelogram. We know the area of a parallelogram is base times height. We have a few measurements here, but we know the base is always perpendicular to the height. So the question mark here is our height. And so our area mentioned below is 51.1 meters squared. So we put that in for the area. The base is 7.3 meters, and we want to find the height. So we divide both sides by 7.3 meters. Over here they cancel. So we find the height is equal to, we have to divide 7.3 into 51.1, move the decimal over once. It's probably 7, because 7 times 70 is 49, or 490. So let's try 7. 7 times 3 is 21. Perfect. So 51. So the height is 7 meters. Rectangle here in number 18, the area of a rectangle is base times height. We know the area is 24 inches squared. We know the base is 8 inches, and we want to find the height, which is perpendicular to that. We divide both sides by 8 inches, and we get height. 24 divided by 8 inches cancels with one of these inches here, so height is 3 inches, which makes sense that it's just inches. It shouldn't be a square unit because we're just measuring a height. Number 19 looks like maybe it's a square, but we don't know. We definitely know it's a rectangle because it has the four right angles. So we can use base times height. Once again, we actually know our area is 36 yards squared. The base is 6 yards, and the height we're trying to find. And yes, this does end up being a square because we divide both sides by 6 yards. And we get that the height is 36 divided by 6, and that is 6 yards. Well, number 20 is very much like number 18, just that it's a different number for the area. It's a rectangle. Is base times height. We know the area is 40.8. We know the base is 8. I guess we should put kilometers squared and kilometers here. We want to find the height. Divide both sides by 8 kilometers. Sorry about that. You do that division and you get 5.1. So you can probably figure that one out in your head, but if not, you can definitely use a calculator. 5.1 kilometers. So that's all the area type questions. Now moving on to the things that were in lesson 7.3, having to do with the Pythagorean theorem. So the first part, we're actually looking for the type of triangle. And over here to the right, I kind of wrote the key of how to do this. What you want to do is you want to take the longest side squared and compare it to the sum of the two shorter sides squared. And then here's the key. If the longer side squared is greater than the sum, then it's an obtuse angle. If it is equal, it's a right triangle. And if it is less, if the longest side squared is less than the sum, it's an acute triangle. So we're just going to really use this concept right here. We'll write that each time. We'll make our comparison and give our answer. Another thing you should take note of is we learned earlier that the two smaller sides have to be larger than the third side, which, taking a glance at all of these, that does work. So they are, in fact, triangles. So what we do is we look at the longer side squared, so 13 squared for number 21, and we want to compare that to 5 squared plus 9 squared. Finding those different values, this is 169. 25 plus 81. And this barely gets us over 100. You could figure out what it is. It's 106, but 169 is definitely bigger. So looking here, it's an obtuse triangle. So this one's obtuse. Sliding over to number 22, we're going to compare, I'll zoom in a little bit because I don't have a lot of room. We're going to compare 5 squared to 3 squared plus 4 squared. We might have an idea of what this is already, but this is 25. 9 plus 16, well, that's 25. So how does 25 compare to 25? Well, it's equal. So that is a right triangle. 23, we're going to look at 10 squared compared to 6 squared plus 6 squared. That's 100. This is 36 plus 36, which is only 72, so this is greater, and so this is an obtuse triangle. So one of the keys here, make sure you put the longest side squared on the left compared to the sum of the shorter two sides. So for 24, we have 13 squared compared to 12 squared plus 8 squared. Well, that's 169 compared to 144 plus 64. I don't have room here, but this over here is 208, which is greater than, so 169 is less than that sum, and therefore this one is an acute triangle. 25 through 28 are just straight up using the Pythagorean Theorem. Pythagorean Theorem tells us that a leg squared plus a leg squared equals the hypotenuse squared. A lot of times we write a squared plus b squared equals c squared, with a and b represent legs. So in number 25, we have x squared plus 5 squared, because those are the two legs, is equal to 13 squared. Subtract 25 from both sides. X squared equals 144. Don't stop there. That's what x squared is equal to. We need to take the square root of that. So x is 12. And looking at our dimensions here, it's 12 centimeters. Number 26. Our legs are the ones that form the right angle. So we have leg squared plus leg squared equals hypotenuse squared. And then once again, we just simplify and solve. 12 squared is 144. 15 squared is 15 times 15, that's 225. We subtract 144 from both sides. And we get x squared equals 181. Well, take the square root of 81, take the square root of both sides, and we get x is equal to 9. 27 and 28, let's read the directions. Find the missing side of each right triangle. Side C is the hypotenuse. Sides A and B are the legs. Round your answer to the nearest tenth if necessary. I think both of these we will not have to round. So be careful. That's a leg, and this is the hypotenuse. So we have 6 squared plus B squared, the missing leg, equals 10 squared. 36 plus b squared equals 100. We subtract 36 from both sides. And we take the square root of both sides. So b is just simply equal to 8. Looking at our units, it is centimeters. And lastly, this time we have a and b, which in the directions say that represents legs. 3 squared plus 4 squared equals the hypotenuse squared. 9 plus 16 equals c squared. So 25 equals c squared. Taking the square root of both sides gives us c equals 25, and our unit is miles. So that is the information that's going to be on the test. Please make sure you know how to do each type of those questions.